Artificial intelligence doesn't really care about borders. An algorithm built in Silicon Valley can decide who gets a loan in Berlin or maybe a medical diagnosis in Madrid. So, when the European Union decided to write the world's first major rulebook for AI, they ran into a huge problem. How on earth do you enforce your rules on the rest of the world? Well, the EU's answer is both really clever and pretty controversial. It really all boils down to this one simple question. If a high-risk AI system made by a company outside the EU makes a huge mistake that hurts a European citizen, who do you hold accountable? I mean, trying to sue a corporation thousands of miles away, that's a legal nightmare. The EU knew it needed a way to bring a global problem to a local courthouse. And that was the absolute heart of the challenge. The EU wanted to set a really high bar for safety, especially for systems they call high risk. And we're talking about the big stuff here. AI that diagnoses cancer, controls power grids, or decides if you get a job. But seriously, what good are super strict rules if a tech company can just operate from outside your borders and basically ignore them? So the goal was crystal clear. Create a level playing field. It doesn't matter if an AI is developed in Brussels or Boston. If you want to sell it in the EU, you have to play by EU rules. And this wasn't just about being fair to businesses. This was about protecting the fundamental rights of their citizens. They needed a hook, some kind of mechanism to pull global tech into their regulatory orbit. Okay, so let's get into how they did it, because the solution was not obvious. The rule that's at the center of all this, Article 22 of the AI Act, went on a surprisingly dramatic journey. I mean, it was forged in years of really intense debate and negotiation. It all started back in 2021 with a pretty vague idea, honestly, a sort of part-time representative for all AI systems, which was just way too broad. By 2022, they started to focus, narrowing the scope to only those really critical, high-risk systems. But 2023, oh boy, that's where the fireworks happened. The EU's top bodies clashed over one explosive question. Should this representative be legally on the hook if the AI fails? And just look at this table. It really tells the story of that transformation. What started as this kind of passive, conditional role became a mandatory, proactive gatekeeper for the riskiest AI out there. The appointment went from an if you have to a you absolutely must. And the role itself got supercharged, going from just passing along info to actively checking documents and working hand in hand with authorities. Which brings us to the main event. Seriously, the biggest fight in creating this rule wasn't about what the representatives should do, but what they should be liable for. And one of the EU's most powerful groups, the Council, came out swinging with a proposal that would have changed everything. Jointly and severally liable. Okay, that sounds super technical, but what it means is actually simple and incredibly severe. Imagine you co-sign a loan for a friend. If they vanish, the bank can come after you for the entire amount. That's exactly what was on the table here. If a non-EU AI caused damage, you could sue the EU-based representative directly for everything, as if they had built the thing themselves. But in the end, that was just a step too far. After a ton of fierce debate, that direct liability clause was completely stripped out of the final law. So why the reversal? Well, the fear was that no one in their right mind would ever take this job. The personal financial risk would be astronomical. It could have totally blocked smaller, innovative AI companies from ever entering the European market. So a huge compromise was made. The AI's creator is still the one who's legally responsible, and the representative's job is all about compliance, not carrying that massive financial risk. So after that massive showdown, what does this final role actually look like? Let's meet this crucial new player in the EU's AI strategy, a role that you can basically think of as a company's official AI ambassador. So here's the official definition. It's a person or company that actually has an address in the EU, and they are formally appointed to be the go-between. They are the first phone call for regulators. In that AI ambassador analogy, it's perfect. They represent a foreign power, the tech company, on EU soil, and their job is to make sure that power follows all the local laws. Okay, so what's on their actual to-do list? Well, it breaks down into 5 key jobs. First, they're a watchdog. They have to verify the provider's main compliance paperwork. Second, they're a librarian. They hold on to all those documents for a decade, just in case regulators need to investigate something. Third, they're a facilitator, handing over info when the authorities ask. Fourth, they're a partner, cooperating with those same authorities to fix problems. And finally, they're an administrator, handling the official registration of the AI system in the EU's database. All right, so we've met our AI ambassador. Now let's zoom out and really look at why this one role, this one article, is so important for the future of global tech and AI regulation as a whole. It matters for four huge reasons. First, this is the legal tool that gives the EU AI Act its global reach. Second, it solves that very first problem we talked about. It creates that single, accountable person on the ground in Europe. Third, it tells you a lot about the EU's philosophy. They chose cooperation and transparency over just dropping a legal hammer on someone. And finally, this represents a massive pragmatic compromise between the need for strong enforcement and the realities of a global tech market. Which leaves us with the million-dollar question for the future, doesn't it? The EU has placed its bet on an ambassador of compliance, not an avatar of liability. But is a watchdog with a checklist really powerful enough to guarantee our safety when things go wrong? The EU has built a bridge to the global tech world. The question now is, can that bridge bear the weight of the future?